All right, everybody. I have been putting off this particular video. I've not seen it. I've really wanted to watch it because it is Professor Dave, one of my favorite YouTube channels. He's a science YouTube channel. There's a lot of videos dunking on flat earthers. Very fun stuff. Highly recommend you go watch his content. In fact, his channel will be pinned in the top comment of the comment section and will be, well, obviously shouted out in the, in the chat here in a moment. He obviously is so many magnitudes larger than me that it probably doesn't matter anyway, but I'm not a very big fan of the whole, like, I'm not a very big fan of like, taking people's content and, not adding something to it. So I do find myself pausing a lot, elaborating on things, and of course trying to send as much traffic as possible back to the original video. I never want to take away from the original video that I'm going to be watching. I always do get frustrated by React streamers who do that. So little disclaimer there, but I like to do that before any video that I'm going to be watching that isn't going to be a necessarily critical reaction, where I'm going to be like dunking on it or anything. So yeah, let's go ahead and hop into it. Professor Dave, of course, is pretty fucking smart. He does his research. He's a smart cookie. What he's saying here is probably pretty fucking true and smart. That's what I'll say so far.
Well, Matt, see if you can wrap your brain around this concept. When a society is accepting of a particular identity, more people will feel free to publicly identify.
Oh, I accidentally clicked like some random point in the video. I apologize. Now we'll start from the beginning.
Hey everyone, so a lot of people watched the video I put out on Monday on trans people, a bit of a departure from my typical content, but I thought it would be a fun experiment to critique both extremes of a touchy topic. I was a little worried about getting attacked by the woke mob based on what I said about comedians and sports, and I did get a bit of that with varying degrees of legitimacy. But it was nothing compared to the avalanche of whiny incels sent over by Matt Walsh himself. They all had lots to say about how I'm a groomer and how Matt totally destroyed me. Of course, this is because Matt couldn't help but attempt to respond to my video, and what's this? He canceled me?
Oh, God.
Oh, no, don't cancel me, Matt. What'll I do? Wait, what? Oh, nobody cares. So what was this masterful analysis that so totally destroyed me, bro?
This is good, by the way. When channels like this, but I like this, though, because, like, Professor Dave is not a political YouTuber. Like, he's not. I mean, obviously, a lot of his videos do involve him dunking on conservatives, transphobes, homophobes, reactionaries, etc., but that's simply because his videos are science videos, they're educational, and conservatives are proudly and devoutly anti-education, anti-knowledge, anti-bettering the world. Damn, this sea turtle really came up to shore, huh? They're starkly against that, right? So when you have I'm not going to call it a normie channel, but normie channel, yeah. When you have a normie channel with broad appeal and very good credibility, putting out content like this and not just the same, like, 20 or 30 left-wing channels that, like, are always dunking on the transphobes, it's good. Especially, like, when you get videos from, like, what was his name? Hank Green, the guy that does SciShow. I think he also wrote that, what was the name of that one book that everybody liked back when I was in middle school, the one where they're dying and it's a love story, The Fault in Our Stars, I think it's called. Didn't he write that? Wasn't that Hank Green who literally wrote that book? That was his brother John Green? Oh, well, all brothers are the same. If you have the last name, you're the same person. I don't make the rules. Stay mad.
Oh, let's go through it top to bottom.
Let's go through this together.
Everybody seems to be furious about trans people. Half of us are furious that they exist, and the other half are furious about what the other half is saying. I would like to jump in and see if I can clear up some of the ways that people are talking past each other. Now, it's no secret that I'm a bit on the liberal side, but rest assured, the left is not going to get away scot-free on this one. They're missing the mark on a few key points. But as tends to be the case, it's bigots on the right who are the main problem, so let's start there.
We're off to a rough start. Putting aside Dave's smug, know-it-all tone and demeanor, something that seems to be a matter of instinct for people like him. So I'm not gonna hold against it.
Smug, know-it-all tone, Matt?
Yeah.
Meet Kettle.
The real problem is that in the very first sentence, he's already...
Bro, yeah, I'm sorry, Professor Dave. I hope that this is like, what I hope is that this is like Professor Dave's like first time really encountering this dude in any meaningful way. And this is him like really truly realizing how stupid the transphobes are. He clearly already knew of the presence of transphobia online in the first place. And I've actually always known that Professor Dave was like pro-trans, because I was watching one of his anti-flat earth videos. He was dunking on flat earthers or whatever, and somebody commented, who was like obviously a conservative, commented something like, "Oh yeah, I bet you're one of those horrible people who think trans people are valid. And then, you know, Professor Dave actually commented, and this is like a recent comment on a, like the comment was 2 hours old and the video was uploaded 6 months before that. So it was like, he was like responding to new comments on old videos that were like hate comments and like dunking on them. And he was like debunking the talking points, saying, no, trans people are valid. Here's why and why. And so I've always known that he was like based on this issue, but it's really cool to see him like really get down and dirty now. And it's sad, but yeah, he's gonna realize just how stupid the transphobes are and just how hateful they are. They're very sick and twisted people. They don't have much going for them in life. Like maybe they have like money and whatnot going for them because they can grift, but outside of that, it doesn't really seem like they're very happy people. Wait, how didn't I end up digging into a cave? Oh yeah, the cave is down this way.
Wildly and intentionally mischaracterizing his opponents. In 30 seconds, he gives us a straw man and an ad hominem.
A straw man and an ad hominem. Look out. The two favorite phrases of every internet narcissist incapable of actual discussion.
Fucking true.
No, Matt, what I said is neither of those things. It's called hyperbole. I know that's a big word for you. Here's the definition. An exaggerated statement or claim that is not meant to be taken literally. You're acting like I literally meant that 4 billion people are mad that trans people exist,
billion.
and the other 4 billion people are mad at the first 4 billion people. Really? Not much of a scholar of language, I take it. It's just a fun way of saying a bunch of people and a bunch of people.
Which signals that he doesn't have much to offer beyond this point. Because if he actually planned on making a compelling argument, he wouldn't come out of the gates breezily dismissing millions of people as bigots. Sorry, not millions, billions.
Sorry, which billions are we talking about?
God,
You're
he's
now
so
blending the
pedantic.
two-halves statement and the bigot statement for some reason. I said it's bigots on the right who are the main problem. That's true. There are bigots on the right, and they are problematic. That is not equivalent to saying everyone on the right is a bigot, as is evidenced by the large numbers of conservatives who thanked me for my video, saying that they learned a lot, despite your minions mindlessly repeating your straw man.
Oh,
You're off to a really bad
cool.
start here, Matt. You
See?
demonstrated.
See what I'm talking about here? Even conservatives watch Professor Dave's video and like found it informative. And you know why? It's because Professor Dave has actual credibility. The guy does his research. Oh, the guy does his research and he knows what he's talking about. People trust him. People trust what he says. And when he makes mistakes, he tends to, you know, come out and correct them in future videos. He's a smart guy and he's like one of the more respected like science educational YouTubers. And when he comes out and he dunks on Matt Walsh, that's got to be like kind of, you know, one of those things. It's going to be a little bit of a shaking of the foundations of their ideology, you know? Forbidden rock soup, true.
Immediately that you can't understand simple sentences. Or maybe this is your tactic. Misrepresent me to stir up hatred and release the mob. Yeah, that's it.
He says that the people on the other side are furious that trans people exist.
True.
Yeah, you are. That's why you're denying their identity and have devoted your life to spreading bigotry.
True.
All of your content is
True.
like this.
True.
You make videos hating
True.
on feminist comedians, which really just means women, because you hate that women can be funny.
Yep.
You can't help but hate. Just saying you're not a bigot doesn't change the fact that you're a bigot. Sorry.
We're not furious that trans people exist, but
I
rather
love it.
we deny the underlying
I love
premise of gender ideology.
I also love the fact that Professor Dave treats Matt Walsh exactly how he ought to be treated. Like a fucking flat earther. Exactly like a flat earther. Now, Professor Dave goes out of his way not to be too condescending to those that in his audience or that watch that might believe in flat earth, though he isn't too soft. He is not soft on the people that push the conspiracy, but he's treating Matt Walsh just like a flat earth conspiracy theorist, because that's essentially the same tier of dishonesty and propaganda that he operates on. He's spreading misinformation that he knows is misinformation to a gullible group of very vulnerable people as far as their, ability to be politically radicalized goes. There's so much diamond and ore around here. It's so dope. I love the fucking cave update. It's so goddamn cool. Tell me that this is not an improvement from how old Minecraft mining in caves used to be. This is cool as shit. This is really awesome.
Right. To deny the identity of trans people, you call it an ideology to pretend that there's an institution to rage against.
Overall, it's a
Yep.
mess,
Yes.
and we're only 36
Exactly.
in. Let's go.
Oh my god.
The primary issue is people.
Oh
who
my
deny
god.
transgenderism.
He
These are the
literally
people who
worded
spew
it
the tide of
perfectly.
Fox News talking points. Liberals.
Yes, exactly. That I've been saying this for a while. The right is trying really hard to convince everybody that there's this trans agenda. There's like a trans institute of some kind, some sort of large institution that is pushing this, because if they can, then it's not them attacking some minority group anymore. You know, what makes you a bigot? It's just them criticizing people that hold to an ideology they disagree with. And nobody gets mad if you just, shit on somebody you disagree with. As long as it's done, in a funny way. And, how does the right most commonly advocate for transphobic rhetoric? With humor. Wonder if there's a connection there. Okay, just one, that's fine.
Say there are 89 genders and anyone can identify as a hamster, that sort of thing. It's a deliberate caricature of
you
reality
can.
peddled by all the angry conservative dudes popping up in my feed lately.
Okay, so yeah, this is the bit where I will find myself having a small disagreement. So when we talk about like xenogender, non-binary, I guess like when we get into identities that are not binary, that are not part of the man, woman, male, female, whatever binary, that's when we start to get into a really weird fuzzy area, because there are non-binary people that have dysphoria, and that dysphoria is alleviated by their identity, their non-binary identity being validated. And we know that a large part of your identity is a biochemical reaction in your brain as far as your gender goes. It's why trans people feel dysphoria, or a lot of trans people feel dysphoria. It's because they have that deep understanding that, they're not in the right body. They're not identifying and currently presenting as the correct gender. So there is an aspect of it that is a biological, biochemical process, but at the same time, there's the aspect of it that is just a social construct, and it is to a degree. A lot of aspects of gender and gender identity are a social construct, but fulfilling some of those aspects for a lot of trans people also fulfills the same biochemical mechanisms that physical transition does. In fact, there are a lot of trans people that I know that are particularly trans women that don't really have a lot of bottom, like they don't have like a lot of penis dysphoria. Like they take hormones, they dress like a woman and everything, and it's like that's who they are, but they don't really care about having a dick. It's not really a big deal to them. They don't see that like having a dick is a problem. And that shows me that to an extent, the completely socially constructed gender roles that we have created as a society have a roundabout way of triggering those mechanisms in the human brain associated with, like your gender, with your gender. And that means they are connected, but not the same. And I don't know how much research there is to like back that up really hard, but I'd be curious to see Professor Dave dive into this in the future and talk about that, because non-binary gender identities, dysphoria, and like their transition being alleviated by transitioning, that's the kind of thing I would really like to see Professor Dave like talk about. And I wonder if he would revise his current position on gender being a solely biochemical reaction type thing in the brain. Opinion on neopronouns? I don't care. It's all good. Use them.
Who claim that nobody can define a woman. Let's all take a moment to acknowledge the problems that go along with the ambiguity of language. Sex and gender are different words that refer to different things. If you did not know that, now
this dips into it a little.
So we have another common rhetorical tactic from the left, and honestly, I'm quite disappointed to hear common rhetorical tactics when I was promised an utter destruction of my worldview, and I was looking forward to it. Professor Dave says it's a tired Fox News talking point that there are a lot of genders. But that's not Fox's talking point, that's his talking point. This is indeed the official position of the gender ideology.
What? No, he's paraphrasing the right. He's not saying the right thinks there's a lot of genders. He was obviously saying the right thinks the left thinks that there is 97 genders. There, like, I wish. Oh my God, it's little skittery babies. Oh my God, and there's diamonds here. Good Lord. Okay, we need to find a. Escape.
Nope, nowhere in my video did I say anything about more than two genders. Sorry, Matt. For someone who whines about straw men, that's all.
Kind of seems like you're implying non-binary people aren't biologically valid. What? No, what I'm saying is that they are, and that it feels like Professor Dave isn't acknowledging that they are, and he isn't acknowledging the science, both hard and soft, to explain why they are. That I'm literally making the exact opposite argument. I don't know how you could get that interpretation out of what I said, but I guess sorry for how I worded it, if that's how it sounded.
Already too thus far on your end. Yes, it is indeed a Fox News talking point, which is just a way of saying the dumbest things that conservatives say, because Fox News is a primary outlet for conservative propaganda.
True.
Some activists have said things resembling that, and you run with it and accuse other people of saying it too, like you just did to me. But anyone who actually watched my video knows I didn't say that. Don't you guys hate it when liberals find the most batshit insane QAnon KKK weirdo raving about lizard people and pretend that he represents all of you? Then maybe stop doing that yourself.
Well, conservatives are hypocrites, biologically speaking.
You are denying that someone can have a gender that is different from their sex. That's all my video was about.
Sex refers to biology, while gender is a linguistic term that refers to words, but was co-opted by a pedophile sexologist named John Money and applied to people.
Oh, wait. I talked about this on stream yesterday, didn't I? Chat, did I not talk about this on stream yesterday? The John Money, David Raymer experiment? I literally wipe my memory after every stream, so I have literally no clue if I actually did talk about that yesterday, or if it was another stream, or I talked about it with a friend or something. But I know I talked about it with someone recently, and basically that story, the reason why it's so interesting and why it's hilarious that Matt Walsh would even bring it up is because that story and that experiment is how we proved that gender dysphoria was real. It's how more or less it was discovered. To give you the background of the experiment, which Matt Walsh would never do, because if you actually think about the experiment long enough, you realize it proves that trans people are valid, and he can't be having that. But this is what they did. So this really fucking weird, creepy, mad scientist dude named John Money had these two kids. They weren't his kids, but he'd somehow come into they'd somehow come into his possession. I don't remember how. And they were like newborns. They were like babies, just, you know, right? And one of them had a botched circumcision, like a really bad one, apparently. And so John Money's idea was to give this baby a 1950s vaginoplasty and tell this baby that he is a girl his entire life as he grows up. And just have that be what he believes. Just, you're a girl, tell him that his whole life. And give him no possible recourse to understand or believe whatsoever that he is not. And yet, as this child grew up, despite having, as far as he could tell, the genitals of a girl, and as far as he could tell, the body of a girl, and as far as he could tell, the upbringing and being told that he was a girl, he still knew deep down that he was a boy. He experienced severe depression, suicidal ideation. He would have mental breakdowns. He had gender dysphoria. He was a cis guy who had been forcibly a cisgender guy that did not have gender dysphoria, as in he was not going to want to transition when he grew up. He was going to be happy to be a boy, was forced to turn into a girl against his will, and he felt and knew deep down that it wasn't right and that he was a different gender. Now, people like Matt Walsh are very, very stupid and don't know how to interpret like an experiment like that, as fucked up and horrible as the methodology is, and how fucking I hope John Money's burning in hell. Regardless, we should not throw away what we learned from it. That's fucking stupid. What we learned from it was that there is a deep internal like mechanism inside of your brain that is like almost a barometer of your sex and possibly even your gender. How much of that is determined by society's gender norms is up in the air, though it is worth pointing out that David Raymer, the kid, knew that he was a boy, even though he had been given a vaginoplasty and raised as a girl since infancy. And by infancy, I mean infancy. So that story, that experiment proves that trans people are valid. It proves that, well, it proves at the very least that dysphoria is real, and that transitioning is the solution to it. That people with gender dysphoria are in fact basically, if we're talking about binary trans people, blue brain in a pink body or pink brain in a blue body. Yeah, it's very interesting. I am not circumcised, and I'm proud to say it.
He doesn't seem to know where his own ideas came from, or else he doesn't want you to know.
No, I'd never heard of this person prior to what you just said, because I'm not peddling ideology. I'm just acknowledging that trans people exist and using biology to explain.
Oh, I would love Professor Dave to research the John Money, David Raymer thing. I feel like there's been no like big lefty figures that have covered that and talked about it. It's only ever brought up by far right people, even though it literally just proves the left right. I don't know why it seems like left-wing figures are so afraid to talk about the origins of gender dysphoria, because it sounds so fucked up. Because what conservatives will do is say, forcing a baby to transition against its will sounds like exactly what the transgenders are doing right now. And it's like, no, you're missing the entire point. That's not what's happening. What's actually happening is that we know that being forced to grow up and live in the wrong body has the same effect on a cis person as it would on a trans person. We know that trans people are not, now we know that trans people aren't just these delusional, like, freaks that are just asking or begging for attention, as transphobes like to say. Now that we know, obviously, look at this, that they're literally just in the wrong body. Like, they're being forced to have the wrong gender identity, the wrong gender roles, the wrong name and pronouns, and the wrong physical traits thrust upon them. And it's causing them to stress, as it would literally anybody. As it literally would anybody. That's what my, like, interpretation of that is that, like, it proved that anybody would experience dysphoria if they were forced to go through the wrong, like, gender. So yeah, there you go.
Explain it.
From here, Professor Day provides a basically correct definition of sex with a long digression into intersexuality.
A long digression. It was 8 seconds.
And then gets around to talking about gender. Let's listen to that.
Gender is a different phenomenon. It is still biological, but it is a neurochemical construct. This means that ultimately it is still genetic in basis, but it absolutely is not determined merely by the sex chromosomes. It is tremendously more complicated, and researchers are still working to understand the biological basis of gender identity. Human psychology is complex. People need to deal with that. Thoughts and feelings are ultimately chemical phenomena. We all have a neurochemical profile that guides how we think and feel, and part of that is gender identity. The reason that we are just now becoming equipped to differentiate between the two phenomena is that in the vast majority of humans, somewhere between 99 and 99.9% of all people, gender identity aligns with biological sex.
So gender identity has a neurochemical basis because it's a feeling, and feelings can be traced back to brain activity. Okay, sure, I'll buy that.
Thank you. You are officially accepting the main point of my entire video. Anything else?
The question is whether those feelings reflect reality. That's the question. An anorexic person feels that she's overweight. The feeling is a biological phenomenon in the sense that it's happening in her brain in the same sense that a man feels like a woman. But we understand in her case that the feelings are disordered, incorrect, wrong, delusional, and so we work to treat her
weight is objective
to more accurately align them with reality.
Matt, this is the best you can do. In the case of someone who is anorexic, there is a disconnect with something that is objectively measurable and quantifiable in the external world.
Yes.
If they feel like they weigh 300 pounds and they objectively weigh 100 pounds, that's not the same thing as gender identity, which occurs exclusively in the brain. Oh, what other brilliant analogies have your followers thrown at me? Can I identify as rich if I'm poor? No, your bank account is based in external reality. Can I identify as president if I'm not? No, people voting is based in external reality. Can I identify as Chinese if I'm white? No, your genome and birthplace exist in external reality. Getting the pattern? So I'm sorry, this whole bit is an enormous miss.
But let's keep listening in.
The unfortunate linguistic coincidence is that we use terms like man and woman, or male and female, in describing both of these phenomena. That is where the confusion arises, when people insist that one term must encapsulate both phenomena at once. So when someone asks, what is a woman, expecting to get a very simple answer that children can understand, they are sorely mistaken. The answer requires a discussion of genetics and neurochemistry.
Well, I'm sorry you find it offensive, Dave, but yes, I do deny the concept of gender as it was conceived by John Money. You accept that concept as gospel. You're offended that anybody disagrees with it.
Again with this guy. I don't know him or care. The concept of gender.
By the way, whether you like John Money or not, the findings of his research have been backed up by numerous researchers and scientists over the last few decades. Like, it's not even just John Money's research. Like, it's been backed up and proven. It's not just his. No one likes John Money. It'd be like if imagine if during the Holocaust there had been some crazy sci-fi Nazi experiments like you see in movies and shit, and after going through thousands upon thousands of Jewish people and whatnot, experimenting on them, they find the cure to cancer. All cancer, it's literally just, it's a pill. You take it and cancer is cured forever. It's also a vaccine against it. You wouldn't just throw that away. Like, fuck off. Don't be an asshole. You're being a bitch, Matt Walsh. You're being what they call a bitch.
Does not depend on what one guy said. You're like creationists who try to debunk evolution by defaming Darwin, as though modern evolutionary biology is just people reciting origin of species from memory. Either address what I'm saying without tethering it to some disingenuous
fucking exactly. What a good comparison. Holy shit. Yeah, it's exactly like when people, like creationists, like pretend that anybody who believes in evolution like worships Charles Darwin. It is exactly the same. Holy fuck. That is a good comparison. I like Professor Dave. Not only does he just make good science content, but he's also fucking based. I respect it.
Point, or admit that you can't and have to poison the well instead.
Meanwhile, you say that the definition of the word woman is complicated, but please note that it's complicated is not a definition. So you still haven't defined it.
No, I did. I defined it in the context of sex, which is the chromosomal definition that you like, and then I defined it in the context of gender, which is anyone who identifies with a gender identity of female. This is associated specifically with brain development. You and all your willfully ignorant followers can pretend that there is no scientific basis for this, or you could just type some things into Google Scholar and check the literature for yourself. Here's one, neurobiology.
They will say over and over and over again in their videos and on their talk shows, when it's just them talking straight to the camera, straight to the audience, they'll say repeatedly over and over and over again, all of the research agrees with us. All of the science agrees with us. The science, the research, the data, all of it agrees with us. We're facts-based. We, yada, yada. Do your own research. We do our, yada, yada. And then when you, like, confront them at, say, some college campus, you know, like Ben Shapiro when he gets confronted at a college campus, and you're like, hey, all of the research literally disagrees with you. Look, they're like, the left has infiltrated all of the academic institutions. I do not trust these institutions. And they just admit they don't give a shit about any of these academic institutions or any of the research or data they collect in the first place. They always do it when they're confronted on the fact they're just lying about any of this research or any of the data or any of the consensus on these issues agreeing with them. It's always been a lie. They just puff up their chest and say, oh yeah, the smart people agree with us, and hope that no one will check and make sure that's true.
Of gender identity and sexual orientation.
My source is that I made it the fuck up!
Differentiation of the human brain, relation to gender identity. Ooh, this one talks about the hypothalamic uncinate nucleus. You know about that, right, Matt? Oh, and this one is about the human infundibular nucleus. Brain feminization. I wonder what that means. And the papers just keep coming.
That's
if you disagree with the findings of these papers, I look forward to reading your peer-reviewed rebuttal overturning an entire subfield of neurobiology with your non-existent expertise. Let's reiterate, because this really is the main lie for you, and everyone who mindlessly repeats, what is a woman, condescendingly on a video they didn't watch which defined it. Earlier, you admitted that you're cool with sex and gender being different things, and you are aware that we use the words man and woman with reference to both terms, and I gave you both definitions in my original video and just now. You just didn't like what you heard and are refusing to interface with it, so you can placate all the people who were pestering you to respond to my video, even though you have nothing legitimate to say. Nearly every binary has been shown to actually be a spectrum, and it doesn't matter how uncomfortable it makes conservative people.
True.
Wait, what? Nearly every binary is a spectrum? Like what?
Sexuality, undeniably so. And sorry, also gender. Do your dance of denial. Nobody cares.
As for the claim that 10% of people are gay, where did you
come biological sex.
Where did you get that from? Well, I'll tell you where you got it from. You got that from Alfred Kinsey, who made that claim in his book, Sexual Behavior in the Human Male, which is the same book that contains a chart documenting the orgasms of infants. He arrives at his arguments and his figures about human sexuality by interviewing sex offenders and prison inmates and lying.
He's so obsessed. He's so fixated.
He didn't. So that's where you're getting your information, Professor.
No, but sure, whine about Kinsey, lie about where statistics come from, pretend that only one person has ever decided to ask this question or gather data about it. Anyone who says things that you don't like got their information from a pedophile, right? No, it is not. It is a biological construct. Society can't turn you trans any more than it can turn you gay. Gender is determined biologically.
His indictment of conservatives was complete without ever approaching the vicinity of any one of our actual arguments, and then he turns to criticize liberals to prove how fair and objective he is by slamming them for not being liberal enough.
This is astounding. It's the dumbest and most blatantly dishonest thing you said in the entire video. When you want to make fun of liberals, you would gladly agree that gender is not a social construct because you want to claim that trans people are just mentally ill and transness is made up by society. But then when I say it because I want to pick on them, all of a sudden you have to disagree and pull something out of your ass, like not liberal enough, because you don't want to address the biological basis of transness because you can't. What unbelievable hypocrisy. And why did you stop here? Of course, you can't show anything beyond this point in my video because it's all things your viewers would agree with. I specifically talk about how trans people can't change their sex. Can't show that, can you?
Not
You
yet.
want your followers to continue to spew ignorant
Not
strawmen
fully.
about how liberals think men can have babies and other such tripe. If only you had shown them this bit of my video that none of them watched. And the parts about comedians and sports? No way. You've got to keep those viewers outrageously polarized and foaming at the mouth. How else are you going to get those views?
He also says that society can't turn you trans, totally ignoring the fact that in our society currently, and only in our society, only in the West, there's been a many-fold increase in trans identification. If that's not society turning people trans, what is it, Dave?
Well, Matt, see if you
Sounds
can
like
wrap
a
your brain
society
around this
becoming
concept.
more
When a
accepting.
society is accepting of a particular identity, more people will feel free to publicly identify that way. You know, like how gay people just suddenly started popping up everywhere in the 70s and 80s and having their own places to gather out in public?
Yeah.
Was society turning people gay, Matt? No, people just felt like there was finally a lower risk of getting lynched or even murdered just because of who they like to have sex with. I get the feeling you would have been the type to lynch some gay people back in the 50s, am I right? With trans
True.
people, it's no different. They have only become marginally accepted in the past decade or so that's the increase. And hey, here's a little good faith morsel I'll throw your way. I'm willing to acknowledge that some young people are probably trying on transness like a hat and proclaiming identification as trans when they really aren't. Who knows? And don't start throwing all this
That I feel like this is a very controversial thing to say, but that's probably true. Probably not on a very large scale, and not to a scale it's worth like freaking out over, especially since, like, you know, if you're young and you're like, oh, maybe I am trans, let me try it out, you're probably not going to get that far before you realize it's not the case. But like, I'm sure it's happened, you know, like it probably has. Shit take? I don't know, guys. I feel like it's plausible. There's a good identification system. The thing is, there's nothing wrong with it, though. That's the thing. Like, let's say, hypothetically, there is some, like, teenager who's, like, let's say 16 years old. They're on TikTok. They found out that trans people exist. And they're like, oh, maybe I'm trans. And they, like, try out, you know, identifying as a different gender. Like, how is that really harmful? I guess the worst case scenario would be, and this is a pretty fucking hard thing to happen because the barrier of entry and all, but like the worst case scenario would be that they would take hormones and have to, and get surgeries, have to detransition, but that is pretty goddamn rare, and most detransitioners are very old. So, you know, I don't know. Yeah, we're gonna yoink all, oh, we're not gonna yoink that, we don't need it. I think that's just for villagers. Oh, free pickaxe. Forgot about that. Oh no, it's getting dark. Oh no. Oh no. Get out of your bed. This is my bed now.
kids being mutilated stuff at me. I said absolutely nothing whatsoever in my video about children undergoing surgery. And quite honestly, don't really support it. At least not unless and until developmental psychologists can come up with a set of criteria to confidently diagnose transness based on a suite of neurological and behavioral markers.
If you say that there have always been this many trans people, but they were all in the closet, you'll then have to explain why there was never, ever, at any point, ever, a mass epidemic of people committing suicide because they were not affirmed in their gender identity.
There wasn't? How do you know that? People have always committed suicide all through history. How do you know which of them were trans? Only the ones who left notes that said, I'm killing myself because society won't accept trans people until the 21st century? Who are you to determine what percentage of people who have committed suicide over the past several...
What the fuck would they have even known? They wouldn't have even known if they were. I think the biggest thing that allowed trans people to like really start to gain, and I think this is really what causes people like Matt Walsh to think that's a social contagion, is that it seems like for a lot of people, figuring out like that you are trans and have to like you got to transition and do the thing and all that, it seems as though that is a realization that requires some level of, okay, this is a good cave entrance. It seems like that is something that requires some level of like education to like be able to start on that path. Like you have to kind of already know what being trans is. Welcome and what a trans person is and all that. Oh god. Oh, I forgot I didn't bring torches. Oh my lord. Oh fuck. Oh god. Oh shit. Oh fuck my ass. Oh, my sweet little virgin booty hole's about to go to heaven. Oh brother. My sweet little virgin booty hole's about to go to heaven. Oh brother. Oh no. Oh, they're coming for me. They're coming for me. Nice. That one was a baby villager zombie. Can you guys fuck off, please? I'm trying to fucking argue against transphobia. Okay. We did it.
1,000 years were trans. Think before you speak.
Indeed. Why is the suicide epidemic happening now when trans people are so affirmed.
Oh,
I think it might.
I was saying this before. I feel like there needs to be like some level of education to like get it, right? Like I feel like a lot of people experience dysphoria and then it's like, oh, they find out from like they learn on the internet or they find out from like a friend or a family member or something that like trans people exist and they're like, oh. Like, and I would imagine that to make that knowledge, the fact that like gender dysphoria is a thing, that's what you're probably feeling, here's what you do about it. That's something that would have required the information age to come about, right? That's why you really start to see reports of trans people, like what you would consider to be more akin to modern day trans people, really coming about within like the Victorian era. And sometimes just a bit earlier, like ages where we had like the ability to transport scrolls and books and information around, at least to some degree. Because I do think that like, it's not a social contagion, but the ability for trans people to like understand who they are and to like pursue transition, know what gender dysphoria is, seems to be related to the information age and the ability for information to travel via any source, especially the internet. The internet's made it a lot easier. God damn. Yeah, like during the Victorian era, I think that's when you really start to see like the first, like what you consider to be like modern day trans people start to like be mentioned in history texts and stuff like that. You see paintings or like real, even like early in the 1920s and 1930s, society was surprisingly accepting of trans people, like in a really weird way. Not in a way that would be considered like woke by today's standards, but at least affirming enough by especially back then standards. Like there were news articles that would come out that would be like, come meet the prettiest girls around, but these girls are actually guys. And it's like, in the ad, it's like a guy looking at the trans woman. He's like a wooga. Like his eyes are popping out of his head. And it's like a real ad from like the 1920s or 30s. Like, yeah, I mean, that's like, I think that the why haven't there been a lot of suicides argument is pretty dumb. Especially because a lot of like the depression, suicide stuff comes from like being ostracized, right? Like if you come out as transgender, and your family doesn't accept you, your friends don't accept you, your people in your life don't accept you, then that's what's probably going to lead you to depression, suicidal ideation, whatnot. I mean, dysphoria itself is a pretty big deal and it plays a big factor, but, society being hostile to you cannot help, right? Xander Hall, it also isn't a recent phenomenon either. There's a third gender in some cultures and two-spirit in some indigenous cultures, if I recall correctly. I don't remember exactly why, but I remember someone smart saying it's not a really good example to use, but like the two-spirit stuff. But I get what you mean by that, but those examples aren't, I don't think, as akin to what we talk about now for this argument. And I don't think it's necessary to bring up either. I don't think it's even necessary to bring up, oh, older cultures have done it, right? Because every time you go down that road, whenever they make that argument and you retort with that argument, like, oh, blah, 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 they always say, well, do you think these cultures also did that, and that? Do you think that was good? And they'll just make an argument those cultures are bad. Like, if you're dealing with someone on the right, especially, the last argument you want to make is, well, this other culture that isn't white people does this, like, trust me, that is the last argument I want to make with a conservative. Oof. Thank you, Kazoo Noises. Of course, I'll be reading donos as soon as we finish the video and get out of the mine.
Might be people like you, Matt.
Gender ideology is a modern Western social construct that didn't exist until it was invented by psychoanalytical quacks and then parroted mindlessly by people like you.
No, gender ideology is a dog whistle that people like you use to propagandize others against human rights.
The evidence is entirely on my side, in fact,
True.
and not at all on your side, because on this topic, you are wrong about nearly everything, and your underlying claims are so nonsensical and incoherent that you can't begin to explain them or defend them, and that's why you don't even try.
Well, I just did. Anyway, that's all you had to say, and all of it was stupid. This could have been done face-to-face like grown-ups, as I requested by email the day after I posted my video, naively pointing out what I thought to be common ground. But you wanted to do this childish tit-for-tat, and so this is what you get. So, Matt, I'm sorry, but you're canceled.
Got him.
That is fun. Before wrapping up, while I have everyone here, I do want to pivot and address some of the criticisms I got from the other side. First, with the gender is not a social construct bit, people have brought up things like gender being assigned to nouns in certain languages and how our ability to interface with certain concepts is shaped and contextualized by language, psychosocial dynamics, the distinction between gender and gender identity, and other such nuance. That's all fine, and I'm sure there's plenty more I and we can all learn about gender. I was simply focusing on debunking the claim that trans people are just mentally ill, rather than that being trans is an identity with basis in biology. Second, with the sports thing, I am aware of HRT. I just think that a manipulation of hormone levels is not the only issue. Puberty is responsible for alterations in anatomy that are not reversed by any kind of therapy. The frame of the body itself is dramatically different between the sexes. I do not believe the science is settled here. Yes, it's true that height and weight and musculature vary within the sexes to provide advantages, but most sports don't take that into account because it would be impractical to divide everyone up endlessly by every category imaginable. It is not my intention to infringe on the dignity of any athlete or make sweeping conclusions about how the sports world should move forward. I also understand that if trans men were to compete with women, this would also be unfair due to having more testosterone. There are lots of problems, and I don't want to diminish the issue by simply saying that I don't care about sports. I hope this will be resolved in the near future in a way that is satisfactory for as many people as possible. And finally, with the comedy, I know that with Chappelle, it all started with the proclamation of being Team TERF, and I acknowledge that this is problematic language. I just maintain that people like Dave don't know about the difference between sex and gender, and accidentally defend the immutability of sex as though they are interchangeable.
Yes,
that's the main reason I made that video, to educate people about the difference. I genuinely do not find him or other comics to be hateful. If other people have reached a different conclusion, that is their business, and everyone is free to express their opinion by boycotting. Dave might be. Anyway, at this point, the response has become longer than the original video, but that's what happens when you're dealing with ignorance, as I've learned from tackling so many varieties of it. If you made it all the way through, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.
Damn. What a fucking fantastic video. God damn, that was good. That was impressive. Like, I've never seen Professor Dave do like a comprehensive takedown on a conservative figure before. And I was like really fucking impressed. Holy shit. What did you guys think of the video? Very good. Yeah, I liked it a lot. Yeah, we're definitely going to need to watch more of Professor Dave's videos if he continues to delve down the pipeline of discussing trans issues. Because, like, for me, I really like learning. Okay, I think my house is this way. I really like learning about the science of this stuff because I know there's a lot of soft science behind it, and sociology is a soft science, and gender identity and discussing all of that is a very soft science. But there is a lot of it that's like a lot more concrete you can point to, and it's really hard to argue against it. And it's why I like to, you know, usually leverage it in debates or in debunk videos, such as, you know, like what Professor Dave was doing. This, of course, does not make non-binary people with xenogender or just generally non-traditional gender identities, pronouns, etc. invalid. Obviously, by the linguistic definition, your identity is a gender, and there's no reason that your gender identity, something socially constructed, ought to be invalid. The issue is one of which we have to move our society in a direction in which it's willing to break down its very narrow-minded, conflation of sex and gender, and views gender as a completely separate entity that can be a little bit more malleable and less traditional than I think most people are comfortable with. And that can be okay. But yeah. Anyway, I really enjoyed the video. Definitely go check out Professor Dave's channel. I'm going to go ahead and drop the video and, of course, his channel in the video description, or sorry, in the pinned comments, as well as in the chat here. Definitely go to his channel, go watch it. This video has more views than I have subscribers, several times more so I don't imagine it'll make much of a difference, but I really enjoyed this video, and I want Professor Dave to get as much support from it as possible. So even if a single one of you subscribes to Professor Dave because of my reaction and discovers his channel, then I think I did something good today. Anyway, thank you all so much for watching if you enjoyed this segment, and as usual, I will see you in the next video. If you want to support me financially, you can do so by donating, subscribing, or gifting a sub on my website, xanderhall.com/live. We are trying to save up money to buy a new microphone because my current one is pretty fucked up, and I'm trying to have a new audio setup. And I also got to pay my editor, and I got to pay myself because this is my job. So if you got the money for it and you're feeling so inclined, you're feeling so generous, consider dropping a dono, drop a sub. It's always very helpful, and it's very much appreciated. With all that said, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and have a good one.